Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Blast off on another episode of Hero Paranormal Podcast. My name is Ryan, the original outlaw of the airwaves, bringing you an epic episode today. We have Michael Wazowski. He is with Dimensional Walking, a Paranormal Journey, which is a YouTube channel that you need to make sure and join. Michael has an amazing series on the Dulce base on YouTube and is extremely informative and has a great knowledge base having to do with the Dulce Underground base and the Archuleta Mesa as well as Archuleta Mountain. Michael Wazowski has delved into the Dulce mystery for quite some time and brings a lot of experiences and knowledge he has gathered throughout the years to the table. I'm really excited to talk to him, so let's just get to it. Michael Wazowski, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast. Hi, how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
I can. How are you?
I'm doing good. Looks like we're all set here. I'm excited to finally talk to you about all this. This is pretty interesting stuff. And it's Michael, correct?
It is Mike. Well, it can be Mike or Michael. I don't care.
Michael Reckel. And I wanted to say your last name correctly. Is it Wazowski?
Yes, it's Mike Wazowski.
Great.
And you know who Mike Wazowski is or was or is? Do you know the story behind it?
No.
You know Monsters Inc.?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yes,
Now I know.
I'm the real one.
Oh, I love it.
It's a crazy story. You got
I can't wait
to tell you the crazy story.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it.
So probably about, I did the Olympic Games in 1996. I'm a logistics guru, so I ran a lot of this stuff for the Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. So I met a lot of people from around the world, right? So, okay, that all went pretty well, I guess, with a million stories I could tell you, but I won't tell you. But anyways, so I met a bunch of people from around the world. And then I did the Olympics in Salt Lake City in 2001 or 2002, I guess. Well, I was there in one. But the point is, I was there at the Olympics and I started getting these boxes of this little, and I opened it up. I didn't know who it was from. They did that purposely. And inside was Mike Wazowski doll. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
With the big eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, I didn't know who it was from. And I got like a second, I may have gotten three. And I think the third one, maybe it was the second one, I found out who it was from. So I called this person up. I said, what the F are you sending me these dolls for? Because I didn't know anything about it. I had no clue.
Right.
So then they explained to me that this movie had come out in Europe, and it came out in Europe before it came to the United States, right? So I'm saying, holy crap, this is crazy. But what is even more crazy, Ryan, that about 15 years before that, I had written I wouldn't want to call it a screenplay. It was more just an article. It was like when the internet first started out. So I kind of threw this out here, and it was on some website. I don't even remember, a paranormal website. And it was like kind of like the whole thing about Monsters Inc., the movie, and how, one of my theories has always been that aliens were here to kind of harvest our energies. And I meant all types of energies, sexual energy, just a screaming, hollering, getting angry. That was one of the reasons we had so many wars. I mean, I really went into this big deal, I thought, holy crap, this is great. Forgot about it completely. Well, I mean, I forgot about it. I mean, I remembered it, but I didn't know the connection. And after I said, holy crap, this is exactly what I'd done. And then they named the main character after me. So it was the weirdest thing. I don't know any of the connections. And another funny thing, I ended up working and did some work for Disney.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm in
synchronicity.
I'm in Memphis. Yes, I'm in Memphis, and I was a contractor, a logistic contractor for them. So I was running one of their facilities, and what happened was that one of the big wheels from England came over, and I don't know, he just, I guess, heard my name and he like freaked out because the whole, the warehouse at the time was loaded with Mike Wazowski dolls, right?
Yeah.
So he's taking me around and showing me, and he's just going crazy. And I said, Jesus, I'm kind of PO'd off because I really should have got a piece of that action,
Yeah.
And because I told him the story, because I felt kind of embarrassed because he was like leading me around like a little puppy dog and introduced. I guess there was some people there that didn't know the little story, and I really didn't tell it many people, but I guess I was in a good mood that day or something. So anyways,
wow.
bottom line was, he said, oh, you should have done that. I said, yeah, well, unfortunately, I can't find all the stuff anymore. I don't know too much about it. But anyways, that's my Mike Wazowski story.
That is so neat. That is, when you said that, when you mentioned Monsters Inc., it made sense.
Yeah, I know.
I really enjoyed your dimensional walking on a paranormal journey on YouTube, and
right.
I want to make sure that everybody is sure to join your YouTube channel because
yes, please.
Yeah, that 2-part series on the Dulce base is extremely informative, and it's worth a listen by all, I believe.
Well, it's 3 parts.
Is it
Ryan,
3 parts?
It's 3.
Okay.
It's 3.
Wow.
It's 3. Yeah, there's one we just did. Rainbow did an interview. Golly, what was it? It's actually been a few weeks now, but there is 3 complete ones. She did a few question and answer thing with me. We did a short one.
Oh,
and
how neat.
It was pretty good. So
you've really delved into the Dulce Underground based phenomena for quite some time, and you bring a lot of experiences and knowledge that you've gathered throughout the years to the table. So I commend you on that. It's fascinating. And thanks so much for joining me on the podcast, Michael. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
Now, how did you first become aware or interested in the Dulce base mystery?
Well, I was kind of a founding member, I guess, and I eventually ran the New Mexico UFO Paranormal Forum, which was become kind of a little bit of a famous group there in New Mexico, kind of in the middle of a lot of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would, as time went on, I met a lot of people, and there was a lot of people that were interested, and they would talk about it and kind of get me interested and kind of got me all fired up. And then when, well, you said Mr. N, it's Norio Hayakawa, by the way, just so you know, and he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, I've had Norio on the podcast. Great guy.
Have you? Great. Yeah. He didn't mention it. I didn't really mention I was going to be on it, but anyways, he had originally, I was a little leery in when I did it to not, I didn't know where I was going to go with the conversation when I did my other 3, or the other 2 actually, because I think you watched both of those. So I left it as Mr. N. I think that's where you picked up on the Mr. N thing, right? But yes. No problem. Norio quickly commented in, make sure he got the credit that he was Mr. N. So, I know it's all good and well. So anyways, we're good friends. But the interesting thing was I went, well, Norio, and then of course there was Gabe Valdez, and then there's and I don't want to, some of these names I'm not going to give you the full name.
Sure.
There's another guy, that had all these cattle mutilations up in that area, which is all connected, by the way. And so there was a lot of people in and around that were kind of not only somewhat involved, but we're doing some research, and I had privy to some of their research and a lot of conversation. So does that answer your question?
Yeah,
so
it does.
That's really where it got all juiced up and going. I also helped do a conference there called Wake Up Now Conference in Albuquerque, where there was people, including well, let's see here. Yeah, including Gabe was there. I don't know if he spoke. I can't remember. It was a while back. But anyways, there's a lot of conversation and things that were going on there because of Dulce being close to Albuquerque. So it just stimulated my interest. And I had some friends that, besides Gabe owning a ranch up there, I had, I had some other friends that own property there that would tell me about, UFOs and things like that up there. So it was always kind of a go-to point. And when Norio decided to have the conference there, it was basically a no-brainer for me. So.
Yeah, it's so neat. And that whole area, I mean, it is possibly one of the, you know, it's not just like the mesa or the mountain. I've talked to so many people, as you said, who own properties around there, and
Hmm.
it's far and wide. The high strangeness is far and wide in that area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the land of enchantment. There's so many stories. There's so many things I, learned and did. I mean, I've lived all over the country, so I did a lot of things in other parts. But I guess uh, inch by inch, pound by pound, New Mexico probably. I don't want to. I don't call anything in the United States or the world any hotspots. People do that. I don't like it because I believe, from my research, that the stuff happens everywhere. Just happens to be in those places. There's underground bases in New Mexico. There's Kirkland Air Force Base. There's Sandia Labs. There's Los Alamos. There's Dulce area, which is obviously controversial. It isn't a solid place you can drive up to and hang out and know it's there. It's kind of one of those mysterious things, as we know, and that's what we're talking about it today. But yeah, there's a lot of things there. I mean, Rainbow and I have seen dogmen there. Actually had a confrontation with a dogman. We've had all that's on dimensional walking. But there's just a lot of stuff going on. Skinwalkers, we've done skinwalkers. There is a lot of stuff there. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
And if I was into calling things a hotspot, I guess I'd probably call it a hotspot. Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm very intrigued about the skinwalkers and the dogmen. Was it near where the quote unquote base was, or I mean, probably fairly close, it sounds like.
Well, the dogman incident was when we lived in Albuquerque. And are you familiar with Albuquerque?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know where Sandia Mountain is?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, on the other side, there's a big forest back there. There's a ski resort up on top, and there's a forest. So we would go up there and hike a lot. And so one day, and I won't give you the whole thing because it'll take us a while. But one day we were up on that mountain, and we actually saw one moving through on a pathway. And so we followed it up there and basically told us, don't come any closer.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to get some long shots of it in the trees. And you can go to we have a website too, Truth Seeker Forum, which is where I've written for 13 years on there. And on there, if you do vortex photography, you'll get some, I believe that picture is on there somewheres. And there's so much stuff on there, it's hard to find it sometimes.
Oh, how
But
neat.
anyways,
Okay.
so we had this confrontation basically with it at a distance.
Yeah.
And Rainbow being an empath, she had a very strong feeling. Even I got it. It was so strong that I even got it. I don't consider myself a strong empath, but I do have some of those abilities. It basically told us to back off and don't come any closer. And we always honor any of that feeling, especially in the woods or wherever we're researching. If something tells us to back off, we back off.
Amen. I respect that. And it's fascinating that that you were friends with Gabe Valdez. How did you first meet Gabe Valdez, and how did this change or add to your research?
It was one of our initial meetings of the New Mexico UFO Paranormal Forum. We called it something else then. But anyways, we used to meet initially before we really got going. We met a group of, there was probably 7 of us. And one of the people were Norio. So we used to meet at our houses. So we happened to be meeting at his house, Norio's house. And there was Gabe. I didn't know it. Gabe kind of showed up, and that was my introduction with Gabe. And of course, he's just the most fascinating guy you'd ever want to meet. And he just kind of went into some of the stuff that he knew about and what he had done. And he was into cattle mutilations, and he was this police. Let's see, what do they call them? New Mexico police, state police, and that was his area up there. And so he just knew everybody. And so he had a lot to talk about, and he had he was into a lot of UFOs. He was that, and he shared pretty freely. I don't want to say he told us everything, but he definitely, in that little group of like-minded people, he did share a lot with us. So anyways, that was how I met him. And then we kind of kept, over the years, we kept up with emails back and forth, and occasionally he would come to my group. I think it was there twice. And then he was at, this wake up conference I told you about, this UFO kind of paranormal conference that we did in Albuquerque. Can't remember what year it was, but anyway, so he was there, and then we had some interesting conversations there, and that's, I guess at that point, that's where Gabe offered to take me up to the Sandia Mountain and show me some stuff. So.
Amazing. And Gabe Valdez and a gentleman I'll just call Dr. Howard witnessed.
Do we have to keep his last name secret? Do you want to keep it secret? I don't know.
Oh,
I
sure,
know
sure,
who it
sure.
is. I know who you're talking about.
Okay.
Ellison, Dr.
Yeah,
Howard Ellison.
So
he was an anthropologist.
Okay. They witnessed something like symbols or drawings on Archuleta Mountain. Can we go into those a little bit?
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing about that. I've heard about them. And I can, well, we'll see how the question goes. I have not actually seen those. I know that there was talk when we were up there at the conference, some people talking about that. I kind of know where they are. But I've been throughout New Mexico. I'm sure you're aware of it, that there's the glyphs are everywhere. There's all kinds of glyphs, and a lot of them, which are just similar to these, also have these symbols that look like UFOs, look like they're possible aliens, space aliens with big heads, with big eyes, and very similar things. I believe that's what it was. Now, there may have been more things. I didn't have a specific conversation with either Dr. Howard or Gabe on those specific things, but I do know of them, and I believe probably they exist. So amazing. You may know more about it than I do, actually.
And along the same lines, I've heard the stories of the vents, and others have seen vents as well. Is that correct?
Sure. Yes, that is correct. And that was one of the things at the Wake Up conference. Actually, it was one of the last conversations I ever had with Gabe before he died, was that he came to me, he approached me. I was there, I was working the conference. And so I was really busy because we had to do the speaker, it's just, there's a lot of stuff that goes into doing a conference, right? So I really didn't have a whole lot of time, but I did kind of go off to the side with him. And he approached me and said, listen, Mike, I want to take you up there and I want to show you one of the events. And of course, he had talked about the events, but he never invited me up to see them. And of course, he went into the whole thing, and I said, yeah, you had told us about it, blah, blah, blah. And he said, sure, let's hook up. Can't really talk about it anymore because I'm in the middle of a conference. And we'll hook up and we'll call and call each other or email or whatever, and we'll set something up. Well, unfortunately, as time went on, he died, and I never got up there. But there were other people that had talked about the events and supposedly saw the events, and they were pretty impressed. I mean, one of the things they always said is it was kind of weird and it was a little unnerving because even then, because a lot of people feel that the base is inactivated, he said you could not so much hear anything, but you could feel the kind of warmth. There's some kind of air coming out of it.
Yeah.
Which was a little creepy, scary if you consider what could be down there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So anyways, it was like, holy crap, I'm going to go up there and sniff some air that God only knows, there could be aliens down there or something. You don't really know. But anyways, I believe Gabe. I believe the vent was there, and I was a bit excited, a little anxious, a little cautious about going up there. But one thing about Gabe is he did know, it's obviously on the reservation, the Hickory Apache Nation, okay? And he did know them all. So I felt much better. I would not have never gone up with I would call a non-native or Gabe. That was kind of the choice. It was either Gabe or a native that I knew well. I wouldn't want to be dumped in the vent. That's for sure. So so it was. It could have been something really interesting, but I did get long conversation with Gabe about the whole situation, plus other people, Norio included. He knew a lot of stuff too that he had heard from Gabe and other people. So I was really lucky to be in a position at that time to be able to get this type of information. anyways, so that's that.
You really were. Oh my gosh. And just, the back to the vent thing. I remember hearing about from a friend of mine known as Dave Rosenfeld. He studies another base up here in Utah known as the Dugway Proving Ground.
Oh
Pretty,
my gosh, really?
yeah,
The Dugway.
yeah.
Rainbow and I, we lived in Utah, and
Oh,
we
I
we
didn't
actually
know
did
that.
we did some of our own research over there and got ourselves into some trouble.
Yeah, it's
But that's
wild
another
out
story.
there. And it's a
That's
similar
another
thing.
story.
Similar thing. He
It
mentioned
it
some
is.
some vents, and I sure enough went, and I didn't believe it. And I kind of similar to what you were saying, where you can feel that air coming in,
Yeah.
and it's like it's got to go somewhere. So I
Yeah.
believe that
No, you're
100%.
right.
That is so
Right.
neat. You used to live in
Yeah.
Utah. That's great.
Oh yeah. See, we've been to Skinwalker Ranch, and we've had. If you look, I think one of our videos talks about that pretty specifically, about Skinwalker Ranch and the stuff we never got in it, but the things that came and followed us back home are pretty incredible.
That is what
That
I've
you could do
encountered.
maybe
Yes.
once.
That
Yes. Oh, you
area.
did.
Yeah,
Oh, how
so
wonderful.
I own a
Yeah.
property just south of it, adjacent to the south border, known as Space Wolf Research. And what you're saying, though, that stuff coming home with you is a very,
Oh,
very
really?
real.
Yeah. I mean, we can, anytime you want to talk about that, I'd probably love to, if you want to do another interview on that, we can tell you. I mean, even though we've talked about it before, I mean, since you had some of the same thing, it may be a good one to do, but I love to have Rainbow here because she was the one that had the direct, because she's the empath.
Mm-hmm.
So she makes contact with beings. And the experience we had after we came back from Dulce was, I'm sorry, came back from Skinwalker Ranch. And plus, there's another little aspect of it. When I did the Olympics there, I had somebody that worked for me that was a policeman up there. And the stories he told me were
Wow.
shocking.
I'm
Were
sure.
to me were shocking. Were quite shocking what happened with him. So anyways, that's up to you. But we could do that sometime in the future. Right
That
now
would be great. I would love to.
we're
That's kind of it fascinates me, and I could talk about that all day.
Yeah. No. We always wanted, it was kind of our go-to place. And when I got an opportunity to go back to Utah, we took the opportunity. And I was doing my work, making a living type work, but we had a lot of time and we did exploring. We went to Dulce, and we went to, not Dulce, I keep on getting back to Dulce, but Dugway. And we did a lot of stuff, up in the mountains. We did, and I knew a lot of people there because I did the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And I had connections there, let's just put it that way. So we were lucky enough to be able to kind of move around. I don't want to say freely, but sort of freely, I guess, in a way. But anyways, yes, we found Utah quite fascinating and a little scary at the same time.
Yeah, the Southwest in general just seems to be, kind of getting back to that a lot along the lines of Skinwalker Ranch and
Sure.
Dulce and Dugway and all this stuff. Portals and vortexes have been reported on or around Archuleta Mesa and Archuleta Mountain quite often. Have you heard any stories about the portals and vortexes in the area?
I'm going to just tell you one. When we did the Norio did the conference, we assisted. But when we went up, there was a group of us that got there early, and that was the conference is on a Sunday morning it started. It was like a one-day deal. So we came on a Saturday and stayed overnight. And before we went to the hotel, we drove out to Archuleta Mesa. We were able to get out there, didn't have any problems per se. And of course, we were going to kind of use our pass saying, we're part of the conference. Actually, in reality, that may not have been a good thing, but we didn't have to use it. But there was a lot of people looking at us, us white people there. We stood out like a sore thumb. But anyway, so we went up to the kind of the area, which was kind of the base of the mesa. And, one of the things I do, and is I'm a vortex photographer. So what I do is I take pictures, and I get weird creatures. And what I try to do is I have a guy named Kiwani, who is probably one of the finest and the best researchers in Sasquatch. And he also dowses, and he can dowse maps and find vortexes. So what I typically have him do, he'll do a map for me. And then what we do is I would go out and take these random shots. And on these random shots, I'd find some really interesting stuff. Okay. So anyways, I went ahead. I didn't know about the vortexes, but I took some shots of the side of the mesa, some random shots. And in one of them, I got the strangest creature. And I believe it was a vortex area. It felt like a vortex. I got to tell you, you can feel them when you're actually either close to them. You probably always don't want to be in them, but you can feel the energy. The energy is much different than just being normal, walking through a woods or whatever, or wherever you find the vortex. Can be anywhere. They can be in your freaking house. You know, there's nothing, you don't have to go too far. There's vortexes everywhere. And I could tell you a really cool story about one of the biggest we ran across. Kiwani and I ran across years ago. But anyways, so I looked at this, I said, Jesus, you know, it feels like a vortex. So I did my random shots in the area towards it. And there was this, I guess, a vortex area. And there's this creature. It was the strangest creature I've ever seen. It looked like a huge turtle. Huge. It was kind of like a flying, animated right there. It just stopped right in the opening of what I'll call a vortex, almost like a cave vortex. And anyways, there it was. It was crazy. And the other people that I was with actually did see it. Once I focused on it, they could see it kind of with their naked eye, but they could see it a lot better with my with the camera itself, because I would blow it up and then do it. And of course, I kept the picture for later. And I believe it's on the Truth Seeker forum. If you just put in your vortex photography, it'll be one of the many vortex photographies I have on there. So anyways, that was my experience with the vortexes. Now, one more comment I will make is when at the very end of the conference, and if you listen to what I told on the other ones I did, the other videos, I talked about you know, the Native Americans coming. And one of the stories they told, they used the word vortex on that they would experience things in vortex areas on and around the mesa. Didn't go into a whole lot of detail. There was some other things that came to my attention because and we can talk about that a little later, but was that some of these other things were just so unbelievable that I didn't pick up all, and it was all 1, 2, 3 hitting so hard, so fast with all these people. It was like I was overwhelmed, and the other people with me were. But so I try to remember as much as I could. I wrote down as much as I could, but I do remember somebody saying talked about a vortex, and they would see a lot of stuff coming out of vortexes. And I want to say it was probably on the Mesa. That's what they were talking about. So
amazing. And you mentioned that there was one area you've been, which was one of the largest portals or vortexes. I definitely want to hear about that.
Oh, you want to hear about that? Well, that's not here. That's not in New Mexico. Now we're gonna jump state now.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you're the boss, I guess, right? Yeah. So there's a place. Yeah. So I used to go on these mini expeditions with Kiwani Lapsaritis. Now he's the Sasquatch genius. I mean, you know, he's made contact. It's on and I can go. But anyways, he's really incredible. So anyways, he does the map, the dowsing, right? So we're in Montana, and we're gonna drive. He knew of a place that he called one of the largest vortexes in the world. And what was different about this one was, or in the United States, I shouldn't say the world, in the United States. One of the difference was this is one of the more permanent ones. Okay, the reason is vortexes will move because the Earth creates some of the vortexes, and some of them do move, and most of them do move, and most of them are small, right? But there is some, for some reason, and I don't really know why, they're more permanent. So they seem to be always there. So anyways, so he's dowses for this thing, and there's a story behind that, but you know, again, the stories are pretty long, so we're gonna kind of get right to the chase. And anyway, so we find this vortex. It ended up being in Idaho. And I'll just give you a general location. It's probably 40 miles outside of Missoula. Okay. And I'm not going to give you the exact location because I don't want a lot of people going there, but it's in a beautiful valley. And anyways, we go to this vortex and we hang out at the vortex, and it's a terrible day. It's in June, it's snowing and it's sleeting and it's absolutely unbelievably terrible. And we're going to kind of hang out here and see if right by the vortex to see if something will come through. Because Kiwani's been to this place before and he had things that would come in and out, like Sasquatch or other kind of entities would move in and out. If you just sit there quietly, you would actually see that. And he had a dog named, golly, what was the dog's name? He'd kill me if I forgot his name, Comanche. And this dog was incredible because he would see stuff coming out of the vortexes before Kiwani did. And so he'd watch his dog. And if his dog looked at it, he was pointing or looking, then he would direct his attention over to that corner, right? So anyways, the dog was with us and we're sitting there and we're looking and nothing really happened. I mean, you could feel you were in a different kind of place, right? Nothing really happened. It was a huge vortex, but this is what I wanted to tell you. The weather sucked really bad. It was bad. And in June, we were about 7,000 feet up. Okay. The valley was maybe a little lower, but everything around us was about 7,000 feet up. So anyways, so I said to Kiwani, I said, you always talk about Sasquatch being able to change the micro weather. And he said, oh yeah. So he goes into the middle of the vortex. He takes his lawn chair in the middle, sets some crystals up under his seat, and he communicates, right? And, I'm a little skeptical, I mean, I've been doing this for 50 some years, all aspects of paranormal, right? But I'm still very skeptical. So he goes in there and I'll tell you something, Ryan, I could not believe it. Within 10 minutes, the sky over the vortex, this whole vortex area, it was a big area. The sky opened up and a beam of light comes down, right?
Holy cow.
And it's beautiful. We had to take our coats off. We had to do this. And Ryan, you ever heard about being in the middle of a hurricane? Mm-hmm. You could look out and you could see the clouds going around you. Wow. And I am not kidding you. It was the most incredible experience ever. Well, I mean, there's been plenty of experiences with him, but this is incredible because it actually, he said it pretty much, he thought it encompassed the beam of light. It was sunshine. It was not a beam. It was actually from the sun. But it was warm. It probably got into 50s or 60s, and everywhere else around it was snowing and sleeting and shitty. And we're in this middle of this light, and it stayed like that for a long time. And then
unbelievable.
Finally, it just closed up, and it was like all back to where it was. But anyways, this vortex area is really cool. It's in a beautiful little valley. I don't even know if it's still there today, but it was a wonderful experience. But
that is
and
neat.
What I found out with my vortex photography, just a quick note, is when I'm able to find the vortexes and I do the photography there, it's always some really, really incredible creatures that seem to be in and around the vortex itself. So you can see all those on True Secret Forum. There's a lot of them that are in vortexes, and some of them are random, just in the middle of a woods or other places, which these entities seem to crop up, and you can see them. Some people seem really better than other people. So, but anyways, it has a lot to do with vortexes. I can tell you that.
And speaking of strange things, you had mentioned you'd mentioned the conference, and
sure.
Is this the same conference that it was the Dulce Underground base conference, and a lot of strange things took place then? Is that correct? In and around the conference.
Yes.
Can we get into some of those things? Because I was really blown away by some of the things that took place in and around that conference.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. No problem. So anyway, so we, after everything's settled down, we go and, basically eat our dinner and everything. There was one little quick thing I wanted. It's a little strange. It's just more personal strange than anything. Well, I guess the other people noticed it too. We were eating dinner, and the waitress comes up to us, and I have a pretty good feeling when people are not all human. Okay. Mm-hmm. I guess over all the years of being around maybe hybrids and some other aliens, entities, and I can tell you stories. But I felt this person was not, it was sort of, I had the feeling, the same feeling I have when I go to Roswell sometimes, where we go in a restaurant or we go, in the Walmart, okay, and we just sit and watch people. And you can almost tell which ones are hybrids and which ones are something else. And I'm telling you, it's real.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm sitting here eating, we're eating, and everybody's this waitress, she was not real. She was not of human. She wasn't. There's something about it. I don't know what it is. And I guess you have to have a little bit of empath in you to feel it. The energy is different. Okay. So anyways, that was fine. And she gave us her food and it was all cool. So anyways, the next day we went to breakfast, but I skipped over something, but I want to just finish up with the waitress. So I go there and she was non-native. Let me just tell you that. That's what she stood out extra, because everybody else was a native in this. This is a casino hotel. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody there was native. And so anyway, so I was curious about her, and she wasn't around. So I asked one of the other native waitress, I think it was, it was a waitress. And she said, what are you talking about? And she says, there's no white girl. There's no white girl that works here. And I thought she was just pulling my leg. So I said, okay, I'll just leave this one go. And so I asked another one, and the person pretty much convinced me there was no other person there like that. And that was strange. And the other people thought it was strange too, that were with me, because they sort of noticed her, that there was something strange about her. She was, I don't know, just maybe the way she looks, and she has very interesting eyes. One of the things Ryan, I always talk about, always look at the eyes.
Yeah.
A lot of it tells in the eyes. It's really in the eyes. So, okay. So anyway, so we go to bed. We're going to get a good night's sleep before the conference, right? So about 6 o'clock in the morning, all hell breaks loose. Okay. So there's helicopters everywhere. Well, it sounded like there was helicopters everywhere. It turned out that they were so dang close to it. That's the sound, but it was probably 2 helicopters, maybe 3, and they were circling over the hotel, and they seemed to be getting extremely low, and it didn't seem right to me. But then they went away, and I got up. It was kind of early. It was probably earlier than I wanted to get up. I said, oh, hell, I'll just get up and get dressed, take a shower. So anyways, we go down to the lobby, and, the people down there, the people that were working in the lobby, and a couple other people that were sitting there were Native Americans, and they saw us coming down, and then we stood out like a sore thumb pretty much. And so anyways, they were really angry with us. And they kind of pushed ahead and said, hey, did you guys bring the military here and blah, 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 blah. And they were really upset. And we said, no, what are you talking about? Because I didn't really make it more thought. I thought, well, okay, maybe there's an army base around. Maybe this is kind of the normal thing for this time of the day. I don't know. But anyways, come to find out, it wasn't. And they're right over the hotel, or the right, over here. So it was like, wow, I guess it was some kind of a crazy event. I mean, later on, I was talking to somebody just before we left, and they said that they saw them actually come down, and it looked like they were kind of looking and writing things down or taking photos of the cars, maybe license plates. We don't really know, and that was kind of that, that was pretty crazy. I guess if you want me to talk about it afterwards, is probably one of the most profound things for me personally. Well, let me back up a minute.
Sure.
During the conference itself, which went pretty good. Now, we had so many people there in the original room, the fire marshal was going to shut us down. Now, this got Norio a little crazy, and Norio kind of went into a trance because he didn't know what to do. So I kind of jumped up, and I went over and talked to one of the elders and said, listen, you got to help us out. Your guy is going to shut us down. We have to find somewhere else. So he, I had to go back and forth with him and be as nice as possible. And finally he said, well, I know Norio, and, Norio this and that. So finally he said, okay, let's go. Let me talk to the guy. He made a phone call, and across the street was like a grocery store. And behind the grocery store was they had a conference room, and it was a pretty dang large conference room. I was like in shock. You just wouldn't find a big conference room by part of a grocery store. So I didn't know what it was. And I apparently did meetings and stuff like that for the tribe, right? He said, okay, great. So we all got up, we all go over there and at this grocery store. One of the other really interesting things at the grocery store was it had windows kind of at the back of this conference room, big windows. And then it was like a patio out there where we could go and eat or whatever. And all of a sudden, it just kind of freaked me out. Huge. I mean, these were huge blackbirds or ravens. I think they were ravens, maybe blackbirds. Let me tell you something, Ryan. I've never seen anything like it. These things were huge, and they were standing there. Was probably 7, 8 of them at one time. They were just in there looking, watching us. And it was a freaky deaky deal. It reminds me, and I did a lot of research out east when people used to talk about the owls. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you know about owls. Owls are not only sacred creatures, but they also are shape-shifted grays, okay, for the most part. And this reminded me of this, but it wasn't, I don't think these were grays. These were something else. And they were strange because they were just sitting there looking and watching everybody. And they were extremely big, much bigger than any raven. And nobody else, honestly, nobody else seemed to pay attention to it. Now, they may have been more interested in everything else going on. You know, this is even before people started talking. And I guess I got involved with the people talking, and I think eventually they just flew off or whatever. Maybe they walked away and got in a car for all I know. So anyways, so that was pretty strange. And then during the conference, I mean, the conference is really good. I mean, Norio spoke. I think Gabe spoke. There was other people. Some Native Americans spoke. Some of them were very positive. I mean, when I say positive, talked what they knew about stuff, you know, about the base, etc. But one of the things that's strange to me, and it felt something was weird, was that right about in the middle, yeah, I know Norio probably watched this and he may have a bit of a problem with it, but I'm going to say it anyways. Something happened. I don't know if somebody talked to him, but his whole demeanor changed and he looked like something was very upsetting. So I never really got down to the bottom. I questioned him on it. I don't know if he got threatened, but talking about a threat, I got threatened in the bathroom. Wow. So I was in the bathroom doing my business, and I had a camera, and a Native American or somebody, I think he was a Native American of the tribe, came and was very upset with me because I had come. And of course, this was after the incident with the helicopters, right? Mm-hmm. So apparently he was still sore about that, and he was going to take my camera, and I don't know what he always was going to do. It wasn't going to be pretty. And so anyways, I kind of talked him off the ledge, and you know, everything was kind of fine, but he wasn't too happy. He said, I'm going to be happy when you guys leave, blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, it was all great. And then there was another person I know in the casino the night before also was confronted. And so there were some people there that were very receptive to us. And there were some people that weren't. Some of them were native. Some of them, I'm not sure if they were just locals that, you know, lived locally and owned property locally. But some people just didn't like the attention we were drawing, because that was really the first time. I know there was some conferences and things after Norio's, but that was the first one. And it may have gotten easier afterwards. But I think initially nobody knew what was going to happen. And so I think that was pretty much, you know, what happened. And, you know, after that, I think the next thing I will tell you about is that the confrontation I had, and another person had when we were going to try to leave. Norio had left. And I won't tell you all the things about Norio and the experiences. Yeah, I'll let you do that if you want to, because he had some things that happened to him afterwards, but I'm gonna let him tell you that if he wants to. But anyway, so we're there getting ready, packing our car up, and we're getting ready to go. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, excuse me, these cars pull up. You know, I always remember a couple, and were these old Camaros, like, I don't know, 20-year-old Camaros. They all look beat up pretty well. And it was pretty crazy, right? And there was at least, I think there was 5 or 6 cars that just like stopped us so we couldn't move, right? And I said, oh shit, what now? We want to go, So all of a sudden they jump out and they're real nice. They're very nice. There was no problem, right? So they started telling us stories. This one Native American, she told us about a story in which she was driving down the road, kind of driving out towards the mesa. And all of a sudden a ship came down and took her whole Jeep and everything up inside the ship. And she told about that whole experience. And it was like, wow, that's, it isn't that I hadn't heard that before, but, it was a really amazing story. And she was very convincing, right? And then came, I think the most famous part of all of this was the pictures, the photos. Mm-hmm. These were the famous photos that kind of scared me. They scared me because I saw them, okay? And they were photos of creatures. They were photos of things that the Native Americans claim they had gotten these photos. I don't know. They didn't say how they got them. They didn't say they took them. I don't think they did, but they got a hold of these. And these are real photos. These are not drawings. These are photos. And they look very real. And you got to remember the Photoshop situation that was probably started much later. I mean,
right.
And these people, I mean, I'm not saying anything negative. I just don't think they would have done it or had at that time. The capacity was easy to do without having sophisticated, like we do today, programs on computers, right? I don't think so. These were real photos, and I think they were real photos of creatures. The one that was really frightening was this one, and it was laying there. It looked like it was still alive. It had a humanoid face, a human face. It had gills. It had skin that looked like cow hide. How else would I say it? I don't remember I guess it had more of a cow head. It had kind of short cow ears. They weren't long ears. And I guess the look in their eyes was what kind of got me. They looked like they were alive, but they were under like a being heavily drugged.
Wow.
And there was 2 photos. One was a very close up one, which I just described to you. And another one was kind of a side look, which was confirmed the first one, but then you could see the side of the body. It looked like a cow, but you could still see the human face kind of coming out of the front from the side.
Unbelievable.
And they claim this is from the underground base. They said it was from the lower levels of the underground base. And the reason I felt very comfortable that these were real also, even though I didn't ask, but they didn't say, you want to buy them or you want to do this. They just want to show them to me. That's all they wanted to do. Because I would have been more suspicious if they said, oh, well, you want to buy them for $100 or you want to do this. No, that never was. I mean, if they would have gave them to me, I guess I would have took them. But after I got back in the car, knowing what I saw, and I believe the person that was with me saw him too. But for some reason, that person just, I don't know if he just didn't want to talk about it or what it was, or he was such in shock. But somehow the story ended up getting on the internet and my name was on it. And I guess I've been always concerned. I mean, this is many years ago, and I was still working, at some jobs that maybe they didn't know my research and what I did. Although I've been pretty open for many years wherever I worked. And I did work, I've worked for companies, did a lot of work for aerospace companies. So I, it was always a little, because I had to have high clearances. So it was always a little concerned that with a little bit of a YouTube search, they would find this and say, holy crap,
right?
What's this all about? So you had to be concerned. But I found out over the years, because I was always a manager of some sort. And many times when I hired people, it's amazing the stories they had to tell. And one of the conclusions I've always had is years later, after 50 some years of doing this, is that almost everybody has had paranormal type experiences. Most people will not talk about it, but they have had them. And most of the time when I talk to them, most of the time they usually tell me, yes, I have, because they all want to talk about it, but they can't find the right people to talk about it, which is kind of a sad thing, because some of these people are hiding, and it's a real anxiety for them, and it shouldn't be at all. So
That's true.
that's that. That is true.
That is true. That kind of brings up my next question, which is, Paul Benowitz has often been described as only having disinformation, and I don't believe that's necessarily the case. It's hard to tell what was the real info and what wasn't. In your opinion, how do we separate, the real the wheat from the chaff, or
Yeah, yeah. I never met Paul, but I do know people that had. All of them had good things to say about Paul. I think what happened with Paul, I mean, you sort of know that he was a contractor for the government, and he made instruments. He had a company and made instruments of some sort. I'm not sure what the instruments were. He lived right by the Kirkland Air Force Base. In fact, he was right. I mean, I've been by his house, and you could see that he could see a good view of the base. And of course, some of his claim to fame is that he saw a crash or heard about a crash up in the Dulce area, and actually went up there and supposedly saw it. Then he got involved with hearing some things, some radio communication, etc., that led him to believe that some things were happening, and aliens were real, and all this stuff like that. I think Paul was sincerely believe that, and I sincerely believe some of it is true.
Mm-hmm.
I believe for some reason the government started feeding him some possible disinformation. For what reason, I'm not really sure. I don't know if they just wanted to muck up some of the things he was telling people, and they wanted that to come forward and all of a sudden discredit everything that he had said. That is very possible. But everything I heard about him from people I knew that personally knew him, they always felt that he was up and up guy, and not saying that they knew all these things, but they felt that he was the real deal. And they felt, everybody I talked to, and I included myself, just the things that I had read, and some of the people I talked to felt that at least some of the things that he had talked about very well could be true, because other people collaborated what he was saying one way or the other. And especially possible crash up there, not saying it was a UFO, communication of some sort on the base. That seemed to be very possible. Now, I can't verify the actual conversations that they were true, because they could have been partially disinformation. There's no doubt about it. The government does this disinformation stuff all the time, or did.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
Anyways,
bringing me to I agree 100% with you. And another interesting gentleman that's involved with the Dulce base is Phil Schneider.
mm-hmm.
And, not only the way he passed away, but there's a lot of controversy around Phil. And it's tough, because he seemed to have had a very legitimate background with the military.
Right.
And how did he pass away? What was your view of the stuff Phil Schneider was saying?
Ryan, you're probably not even gonna believe this to a certain extent. It's just really a wild synchronicity. So I live in Oregon, and I live about 8 miles from his apartment.
Wow.
So where he died. So almost once a week, I drive by it. So it just was so crazy when I saw your question about Phil. Yeah, the thing about Phil was, and I knew people that had met him, but I'm not going to say I knew people that were good friends of his. I believe Phil, at the end of his life, for whatever the reasons, was having problems, emotional and mental problems. I can't believe, and I know people that know people that blah blah blah. I can't go into all of it, but I find it very hard that the government or had murdered him. Okay. I'm not saying he died of a suicide. I'm really not. I really have a hard time unless Phil, because you got to remember, and I was told this a long time ago, and I always lived by this thing. Don't keep secrets. Okay. So what that means is that's why I have a website, and that's why I have dimensional walking. Don't keep secrets. And this was told by it was actually told by a CIA guy I knew. He said, one of the things you want to know is keep all the stuff you're doing up front. If you're investigating, you're doing this, make sure it's known. Write a book, do lectures, do whatever, but don't sit back and hide and keep this stuff and just chat among small groups. That's what they told me. And you know what? I've always done that. I've always been very open. If somebody came and asked me a question about something some research I was doing, because I did a lot of research on abductees and contactees when I lived out in the East, and some of the research was pretty profound. And I was very open with them directly, actually. I mean, I was questioned and I told them. So I've always lived by that. And I think Phil also lived by that because he was out there telling what he felt was the truth. He really was. Now, maybe it wasn't all 100%. Maybe he embellished some of it. I don't know. But unless Phil was holding back on some really critical information, there was no reason to eliminate him. They will only eliminate you, really. They may threaten you. But they're not going to normally eliminate you because he was already out there talking. He'd been talking for quite a while, right?
Right.
And he had big audiences. So I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. I mean, there's all kinds of wild stories. It could be, something personally bad happened to him. I don't know. But I listened to his videos. I never went to a lecture or anything, but he just seemed like a pretty good guy. And you're right. I mean, you can check his stuff. He is the real McCoy person. It isn't like Robert Lazard or anything like that. I mean, I think he's a real McCoy too. But he was a little harder. They got rid of a lot of his stuff. I believe they eliminated him. They wiped his background out. But I still believe he was a real guy because I knew people. Norio being one of them. He interviewed him, and Norio felt the same way that he was the real McCoy. So
wow. See, getting back to Dulce, and the stuff that Snyder was saying, there was a lot of connections between underground bases and tunnels. And have you heard any stories around the Dulce area? Any underground tunnel stories or things that coming in or out of them?
Well, I can. Let's see. Let me kind of back up a little bit. We're gonna move a little bit away from Dulce. I can tell you 2 tunnel stories. And the rumor has it they connected to Dulce. Okay. The rumor. I'm not going to tell you for sure. It's a rumor, but I'll kind of tell you, I'm going to give you a little confirmation that the tunnels are there. They're in New Mexico and they're probably in other places. So I ran across a couple of guys that were construction guys. Okay. So this one guy told me this story, and he said he had gotten a call from his boss and said him and his partner had to take some tools and go and meet some guys at the gate, one of the gates at Kirkland Air Force Base. So they did. He didn't tell them anything else. And it's kind of sad he didn't, because they come to the gate, they meet these guys. These are military guys, right? So they tell them to go they go in a car in the black, SUV type thing, the typical crazy black SUV. They drive down the road, tell them to get out. And they kind of looked at each other. What do you mean get out? He said, just get out. And so they get out and they put the bags over their head and they cinch them up. They can breathe, all right? Right? He said, get back in the car. they're like bouncing off the doors and everything else. Then the guys helped them get in the car. And they said, well, what's going on? Just be quiet. Well, so anyways, so they seem to drive for about 10. They thought about 10. He thought about 10 minutes, right? He said he didn't know. With the bag on the head, you just don't know. It feels like, I mean, their minds are just swimming, they didn't know what the hell was going on. So they drive back and back behind the base and behind the labs is the Manzano Mountains, right? And it's a really crazy mountain place, but there was a lot of crap in the back there, right? So they get back in there. And so they get out and they stand there, and they these military people, whoever they were, they told them, we're going to take the bags off, but you need to look to the ground. You cannot look up. And so they took the bags off their head, and they looked down, and these guys both had AK-47s or whatever, some automatic weapons pointed at them. And he said, do not look up. You're going to keep down. And here's your tools. And come on, start walking. Always look down. Don't look up. So they don't know why they said that. So they went and they took them to kind of a place. He said it looked like doors, and they had to dig around the doors. They don't know if what the reason were the doors couldn't get open or whatever it was. So they had to dig around. It wasn't a big deal what they had to do. They had to dig around it. Anybody could have done this. It was the weirdest thing. They said these guys could have done this. This wasn't anything special. They had to put some lubricant or something on the door hinges. They had to do a few things that maybe these other guys weren't qualified. We don't really know why. But anyway, so the doors open, and the only thing they said is they still had to look down, and it was a tunnel. It was down, and it looked like a real tunnel. And that just to me confirmed that there were tunnels or something that were underneath, etc. So of course these guys got their sack put back on it. They drove back out, and they let them go. And they were really, he said he was shaken. He couldn't believe it that the government would do this, and he was mad at his boss because his boss probably knew something crazy was going to happen, right? Yeah. So anyways, and of course I had heard anecdotal information from people I knew that worked at the base, that there was tunnels, there was something underneath it. Not everybody knew about it. I had friends that had homes that were just outside the base, that periodically they would hear rumblings underneath their houses. And many of them just guessed it was probably the train or the whatever it is, the transporting vehicle moving under their house. And it was a regular thing. It was the time was always the same time every day. That's so amazing. That's sort of what that was. Then I had friends. The other little story was I had friends that worked at Los Alamos, several friends, and they could not directly confirm that they had seen the tunnels. They didn't. All the people I was in contact with actually did most of their work on the outside. They did go inside the buildings, but those are the surface buildings, as they call them. They did confirm there was underground part of the building. The main building had an underground portion, and they had heard from being there years. Many of them had worked there all their life. And they said, after being there all those years, you hear little things that led them to believe that there was some type of a tunnel that connected Sandia Labs, and they just said places north and northwest, which would have been Dulce. They didn't use the word Dulce, but that's what they said. And they felt pretty comfortable with that, but they couldn't tell me anything more other than they felt comfortable that these tunnels did exist. And for some reason, they knew it went to to Kirkland Air Force Base, but the other one they didn't name. They just wouldn't. I don't know if they didn't know or they didn't say it, but that's why I believe that they are connected. And I think a lot of these tunnels connect all over. I think that's probably what Phil had said, and other people I've talked to. They felt pretty comfortable that those are real. That's a real situation. It is not crazy conspiracy crap. It's real. So anyways, that's my story. Amazing. I'm sticking with them.
Yeah. I've heard the same. And
Yeah.
these extraterrestrials, it seems like they are trying to keep us from playing with nuclear technologies and weapons. What have you heard relating to that theory?
Well, I'm a firm believer, and that's 100% correct. And here's why I believe this. It's not a coincidence that after we dropped the first bomb, or even when we started testing the bombs, there was an increase in UFO activity. There was many more sightings. There was most of the most amazing stories are right around it, Roswell, and all the many crashes that happened in New Mexico. I mean, there's a much more crashes than Roswell, for God's sakes. There's probably 7 or 8 of them, or more. So there was a lot of activity. One of the things I heard, and this information I got from contactees and abductees, because I would bring this up in some of my conversations with them and ask them what they knew or what they heard. And this is why these aliens, some of these alien groups were so much interested in keeping us from using nuclear weapons or atomic bombs or whatever you want to call, right? The reason is that they said this was the only thing that would kill a human soul. And they didn't, for some reason, they wanted to keep our souls alive or functional. I don't know what you could say alive, wanted to keep them functional. And they said that when an atomic bomb goes off, it wipes off souls off the earth. And I don't know how close it was, but that's what they told me. And they said that we will do everything. And they have, the silos, they talk about those, the codes being changed. They talk about, all kinds of things that are changed. Even the Manhattan Project itself, I heard rumors and stories that weird things would happen. They finally made it happen. They finally dropped, they were able to test those bombs in New Mexico. But one of the most fascinating, Rainbow and I love, did you ever watch the series Manhattan?
Yes.
Oh, we love that thing. There are some hidden things in the mix there.
Oh,
there are some hidden things. So, we love that. That was crazy because Rainbow actually had an uncle that worked at Los Alamos. And
how interesting.
Yeah, so there was some crazy stories about that. And she had some of her own. When she was a kid, she would go up there, and it was a Los Alamos. Have you been to Los Alamos?
No, have not.
You should go. The energy there is very strange. It's very strange.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, you have to. If you get up there, go and see it, feel it. It's worth it. It's a very interesting town, little town, and it's very close. It's closed in, meaning when you live there, you got to be part of the game. And there's things going on there. I will tell you that. So
great.
Anyways,
well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. One last quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
What do you think the future holds for Dulce? Do you think it's out of commission and we won't hear anything else, or do you think that's that?
You know what? I think the activity is obviously died down from when it was years back. I don't think it's 100%. I think some of the labs underground are possibly still active. The reason I say that, and I can only really go back to when I talked to those Native Americans, is that they still there was still a lot of UFO activity over there and military helicopters and things flying over it. Now, they didn't say they landed. They just said they see a lot of it. And they see between that combination just leads me to believe there's still something going on underground. And I think from a standpoint of people out there of interest, I will tell you, this is the most #1 popular subject on both my channel, and it always has been the #1 subject on my website. The most views, and I get views because I track them from all over the world on the website. People all over the world, for some reason, are just excited, interested in it, because it's such a complex subject matter with all kinds of people with their fingers in the pie. And I think it's interesting, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon.
And can you tell listeners your websites and where to find you?
Yes. So my website, which you can look and see all vortex photography and all the other stuff, is truthseekerforum.com, of course. And the YouTube channel, and that's with my partner Rainbow. And actually, Rainbow's written a lot of. She actually is a writer for Paranormal Underground. She's one of the main writers there. So she's written a lot of really interesting things. And our YouTube channel is Dimensional Walking, a Paranormal Journey. And I think you'd enjoy it. We probably have right now about 40 videos on there. And a lot of it has to do with our personal experience. Most of the things we always talk about has partially personal experience in it, because that's what I want to do. I want to get out what our personal experience has been. And we do mix it with some research. We go out in field. We do now, and we have in the past done a lot of field research too. And we will continue whenever we can get out and around.
That's so great. Awesome stuff. And I can't thank you enough for coming on, Mike.
Ryan, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. Take care, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Wazowski. Definitely want to subscribe to his YouTube channel, Dimensional Walking, a Paranormal Journey. Be sure and join his channel. And Michael has a series on the Dulce base that cannot be missed. It's extremely informative and worth a listen by all. Michael Wazowski has delved so deeply into Dulce. I'm so glad that he came on and was able to share a lot of his experiences, knowledge, and he's learned a lot throughout the years and brings a lot to the table. It's an amazing mystery, and I'm very glad that some people are still all about it. It's just one of those things. Until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, and don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off.